And we begin tonight with some breaking news. Just within the past hour, Memphis police releasing this video of the deadly beating of Tyre Nichols.
Due to the brutality of the footage and because Nichols would ultimately die from his injuries, we've chosen not to show the most graphic portions of the police body cam video. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Mark Curtis.
And I'm Kadiba Devine. The video is over an hour in length, and we're still going through the moments caught on camera from the night of January 7th.
Tonight, Jonathan McCall is with community leaders to have an open and frank discussion on policing in America. Jonathan?
That green light.
Yeah, Mark Caribe, good evening. We have a distinguished panel here of very important voices that we're going to get to in just a moment. We literally just finished watching all of the clips, the videos, all four of these just from the Memphis Police Department of this horrendous scene that unfolded there in Memphis earlier this month. I literally just could not believe some of the images from the videos. They literally were jarring, shocking at what we were seeing when it came to this incident involving Tyre Nichols. We're going to get their thoughts in just a few moments, but first we want to give you a recap, a timeline of how we got to this moment.
January 7th, Memphis police officers, as part of a specialized unit, stopped Tyre Nichols for reckless driving. Police say officers got into a confrontation with Nichols, who then ran away.
We got one male black running.
So we barricade. He's fighting at this time.
Officers caught up with him, arrested him, but paramedics were called to the scene. Nichols taken to the hospital in critical condition. 3 days later, on January 10th, the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation says Nichols died from injuries sustained from a use of force incident with Memphis police. January 15th, an investigation is launched into that use of force incident and the officers' actions against Nichols. January 18th, the Department of Justice launching a civil rights investigation into the death of Nichols. January 20th, Memphis police name 5 officers involved in the stop. The officers are all fired for violating what is called multiple department policies. January 23rd, a preliminary autopsy from the Nichols family shows Tyre died from extensive bleeding caused from a severe beating. Just yesterday, nearly 3 weeks after that initial traffic stop, all 5 officers were charged with a series of crimes, including kidnapping and second-degree murder. All 5 officers are now out on bond.
As we were mentioning, we literally just finished watching the video with this distinguished panel. I want to introduce them tonight. That is Bernard Zaper. He is an ASU professor, also is a retired member of the Department of Justice and ATF with more than 2 decades of experience. Joining us also tonight, Dr. Warren Stewart. He is pastor of First Institutional Baptist Church here in Phoenix, and also Benjamin Taylor, a defense attorney who handles a number of civil rights cases. Gentlemen, thanks so much for joining us here tonight. We just finished watching this video in the last 15 minutes or so. Just your first thoughts on watching what you saw, Dr. Stewart.
Here we are again, and it was so unnecessary and it was inhumane. And what we saw, kicking a man down on the ground over and over again, a man crying for his mom.
Definitely seems like, as you were saying, a repeat of what we saw with George Floyd less than 3 years ago. Bernard, what were your first thoughts, your initial thoughts on seeing this?
I pray for Tyre's family. As a nation, we're better than this. There's a significant amount of technical failures that are contrary to post standards across the United States in terms of how this car stop was executed and the result of this young man's death.
Anything, you mentioned the fact, some of the tactics used that stood out, anything that just right off the bat, you're like, this was not in accordance with any type of training that someone in law enforcement would receive?
Yeah, well, primarily it's a horrific reincarnation of the Rodney King beating where they were trying to attempt compliance from somebody who was incoherent. You cannot force compliance from somebody who has no spatial or aptitude to respond. The officer's responsibility is to put that person in restraints and then their care and custody after that. And they failed to do that here.
Benjamin Taylor, you are a lawyer, you're a defense attorney, you handle civil rights cases. What were your initial thoughts seeing that? Obviously, you've seen videos like this in the past as you've been handling cases. What stood out initially to you?
When I watched this video, I can tell under the law, this is definitely excessive force. And this is why the prosecutors in Memphis have charged these 5 officers with second-degree murder. Tyre Nichols, who was defenseless, he was being beat over and over again. And that's your classic definition of excessive force. And it's very sad that this had to happen and he had to die.
And still at this point, we still have no idea why this traffic stop even happened. Bernard, is someone who has decades of experience in law enforcement. We know that this was a specialized police unit in Memphis. Do these units typically have oversight with law enforcement agencies or police departments, or are they just kind of on their own and they kind of police themselves?
Well, what's most concerning in this case to me is that the officer's average experience was 2.5 years. Normally, for, say, a large or medium police department, somebody's on patrol in a uniformed unit for at least 5 years of regular street community policing. Now, a specialized unit where you're in softer clothes, they're unmarked cars, they're doing jump outs to enforce. Those things are technically there to go after high drug crime, violent areas. And so I didn't see the purpose, obviously, with this. Their lack of experience is concerning that they would be in an unsupervised patrol assignment. And so that's of concern.
Yeah. Pastor Stewart, we'll give you the final word. As a community here in Phoenix, we're not immune to this ourselves. No. We're seeing these same incidents playing out here in Phoenix. Does this now need to be, law enforcement obviously needs to be looking at what's happening in Memphis and trying to make big changes, at least here at home as well?
Community leaders in Phoenix have been fighting for police accountability and transparency for over 20 years. And this is another case that shows it needs to happen, and it needs to have teeth in them.
Yeah. All right, gentlemen, thank you so much. We're actually going to continue our conversation outside of the camera right now. Right now, we're going to continue that. And we're going to have another update for you tonight on 12 News at 10 o'clock. But Mark and Caribe, I'll tell you what, again, what Pastor Stewart said, just again, we have seen this scene just a few years ago, and yet we are watching it play out again. And it really is just debilitating, and it really is just hurtful to watch something like that happen just yet again.
You're absolutely correct, Jonathan. It really is just disheartening and maddening in many ways.